Hello friends, Alok here. See me silhouetted here with the sun behind me. So what I'm going to talk about is the absence of sun, one of the metaphors we use for knowledge. Part two, or another part on how politics makes you stupid. Makes you very stupid. And it will kill you. It will do a lot of things. It makes you have bad policies and do a lot of terrible things, and it takes you away from the only truth in the world, the sun and truth. So I'll talk about the United States of America, the country I'm a citizen of right now at the moment. There is a global pandemic raging, and it's caused by a fascinating little thing. We don't know if a virus is alive or not. So it's called a little thing for right now. It's it's from the family of viruses called the coronavirus, and it's raging. It's killing a lot of people. The greatest number of people that have died are in my country, even though it represents only 5% of the population. We've got like 25% of the deaths. To give you some idea of the order of magnitude of the failure of the United States to respond to this pandemic with any kind of competence, intelligence, reason, unity, anything, and it's actually there are two factions in our country politically, and both of them have failed, you could say, and yet they both would is in love with their own faction, bizarrely. And I'm one of the very few people in my country who is, as you will find out, who is absolutely furious with both and the handling of this. To give you some idea of the magnitude, so the United States, my country, we had our first confirmed case of this virus in late January, within 72 hours of several other countries having their first confirmed case of this virus, including South Korea, Taiwan, the state of Kerala in India. And the state of Kerala in India being vastly poorer than the United States, with a lot less resources than the United States. It does, on the other hand, have some preparation because it's had to deal with other viruses before, so they have some preparation. But let's compare it to Taiwan, which is more of a comparable. Taiwan, almost a year later, Taiwan has 7 people dead from this virus. First case within 72 hours, maybe within 24 hours of the United States. U.S. and Taiwan, first case within 24 hours. Taiwan, a year later, has 7 people dead, and they're holding steady, approximately a year later. The United States, it's not quite a year later, and we're, more than 1,000 people are dying every day in the United States. We're expected a year later to have more than 350,000 people dead. So you're looking at, you've probably already done the math, 5 orders of magnitude of difference. And now, first of all, if you're watching my video, and if I tell you 5 orders of magnitude, and you're like, oh, what are you talking about? And you have some strong opinion about the virus or the mask, clearly you should not have a strong opinion about anything, because if you don't understand what I'm talking about by 5 orders of magnitude, and done some stuff in science, anyway, 5 orders of magnitude is a massive difference. And now the United States also, when fighting this virus, should have, in theory, the benefit of observing 2 other countries battle this virus, as well as several other countries battle other comparable other coronaviruses, actually. And that was China. It was a first outbreak, and then after that, it was in Italy, and then after that, it was really in the United States. And so it was months later that it came to the United States. And so the United States, and it's the richest country in the world, has unlimited resources. And what's really interesting is that a year later, 350,000 people are dead. More than $20,000 per every American household has been spent in response to this virus. And it's an enormous amount of money. To give you some idea, the income per household on average is $60,000 a year. So the U.S. government has borrowed, in the name of every household in the country, 1/3 of their annual income and used that money to respond to the virus. And to give you some idea of how powerful intelligence and competence are, and why I'm talking about it with the sun behind me, is that if the United States, at the beginning of February, or the end of January, sometime in January, had said, listen, we're going to use an abundance of caution here. We're going to have every single American start wearing a 2-cent mask. We're going to send every American a 2-cent mask. We want every American to wear this mask as they go around and keep a little bit of distance from people, avoid big crowds and things like that. And wear this mask when you're around other people or you go around, out of an abundance of caution from seeing people, this outbreak of this virus kill people all over the world. We want to contain it in our own country. And if we had done that, and that actually would not have been unreasonable, because in the other viral outbreaks, when we'd seen coronavirus outbreaks before in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia, what was everyone wearing? They were all wearing a mask. So even if you don't know anything about public health or anything, you just look at how these countries are handling it, and that's by everyone wearing a freaking mask. And if we had done that, and that would have cost maybe $200 million, 350,000 people would be alive today. The government probably would not have needed to spend $2 trillion in various aspects to kind of revitalize the economy, keep the economy going, pay money to people and all of that. It could have been a fraction of $2 trillion, and also just in directly responding to the virus and all of that. So it could have been saved in $200 million. And so again, that we're also talking about in terms of economic terms, that's 5 orders of magnitude. And 5 orders of magnitude is like, for every $10,000, instead of spending it, for every $100 that we spent in responding to the virus, we could have spent 1 penny, and we would have had a much better outcome in terms of being able to lead a normal life, and 350,000 of our countrymen and countrywomen not dying, and just the total disgrace of how this thing has been handled. So. For anyone who still cares about our country, has any pride whatsoever in our country, that we're not a bunch of idiots, that I just can't understand how you're not furious about the whole response to the whole thing, and yet the whole country is divided between 2 factions, and each one kind of blames the other faction and thinks that their faction was okay. And at this point, I'm getting a little personally moved here, and I guess I'm getting both sad and angry. But I want to talk about it just factually for the benefit of posterity and for everyone, about these 2 factions. So what's going on in the country, and where we really screwed up as a country is really around these masks. And what happened was that people, the health professionals, early on said that wearing masks does not help you. And it made no sense, because the intention of saying that was so that the public didn't buy these medical grade masks, and they reserved those for the doctors. But obviously that's a lie to say that, well, they help doctors, but they don't help the public. But they were not completely lying, I would say, to be fair to them. They sort of were, but they were basically just saying that it's not going to help the public very much, but it's important for doctors to have them. Now, I actually heard this as well, and I was really confused, and I really thought that just wearing cloth over your head, and I actually, as you can tell, I'm paranoid about viruses and these things. I have my own personal heavy-duty mask that I would wear, and I didn't listen to these professionals, and I told other people to just wear a cloth around their mask when they went out with me. So I ignored this so-called professional advice, though I was confused by it. Now, what's interesting is that one of my friends showed me, who works in the government, he showed me multiple papers from 10 to 15 years ago dealing with the other coronavirus pandemics that were from public health papers that were very clear that wearing an ordinary mask, an ordinary 2-cent surgical mask, it decreased transmission by 90%. And so wearing masks was absolutely essential in controlling the previous pandemics. And we know this thing is extremely contagious. It's a lung infection. It passes through your mouth. And, part of what confused me about, that you have to have this specific mask that blocks the virus is that, the way things work is that you don't have an individual virion being expelled from your mouth that is a fraction of a micron wide, right? It's little water particles that are probably going to have, 1,000 or tens of thousands, or even, actually not even that, millions of virions. That you need to block. It's not blocking an individual virus that's coming at you like a bullet. And so just wearing a cloth would have been fine. A surgical mask would have been fine. And anyone who really looked into these things with even a little bit of intelligence would have figured this out and would not have made these false statements that wearing masks don't help you. And what's infuriating to me is that afterwards, a couple of months later, these guys figure it out that everyone needs to wear masks, and that's the single most important thing in terms of dealing with this pandemic. And then none of these guys apologize. They say, well, we had different information about the mask, and when the information changed, we changed our ideas. But the fact is, they never at any point of time had even a shred of scientific evidence to support a statement that wearing masks doesn't help you and to discourage the public from wearing masks. They never had that evidence at any point in time, and they never should have made any of these statements because they had no scientific evidence for them. And then to say that, well, the information changed and we had to screw this up, and to understand how